Hey friends, welcome to People Pursuing Greatness, episode number 48. I'm your host, Morgan, the latest and greatest episode from the greatest podcast ever. All jokes aside, hope you guys had a good holiday. This was the last episode that we cut in 2020. It was a great episode. Patrick Ryan joins me. We're talking about essentially like just trying to kind of keep yourself guilt-free when it comes to the holidays. I hope you guys had good holidays. Merry Christmas. Happy New Year. The purpose of this episode was to talk about, being okay with not being perfect. I think, in short, I thought it was an episode geared towards thinking about eating, but after listening to it and editing it, I noticed that Patrick was not an advocate for, we weren't talking about how to eat in terms of like a diet or a calorie plan or anything like that. You'll get the gist of it as you listen to the episode, but it was more of a wake up call, and in a good way because we're all human, and just like you guys, I try to balance a lot of things. I'm a dad. I work full time. I'm a husband. I'm a friend. I'm a brother. I'm a son. All those things, and it all takes time. It all takes energy, and it all has a cost. And in 2020, I think we all had a much higher cost than usual due to COVID, and the stresses that it brought to all of us and our families. It's like ripples in a pond. I mean, that shit spread, right? Like every facet of your family. I'm sure grandma's got wrung out with time with the kids. Aunts and uncles, every parent in the world, is like, hell yeah. Even if you're single out there and you're just like trying to like get by, it's just been a fucking tough year. So, I can't level with all of you guys because every story is completely different, in many ways. But I think that as a podcast, we can at least attempt to give you some sort of conversation when it comes to, hey, there's other people out here that are kind of going through similar shit. I don't know if it's the same shit. And we've been doing this stuff just like you guys have, through 2020. So, the point of this one was the last episode of the year. Wanted to go out with kind of a bang. I don't know, as much of a podcast like mine could possibly go out with a bang. So, we were planning on releasing it before Christmas. That didn't quite pan out. And I'm hoping that you guys enjoy the episode. We talk about a lot of things, but the majority of it is just enjoying your family and tradition and not feeling bad for, doing what you normally do. So I want you to continue to do you, pursue greatness. I know it sounds a little corny because I say it all the time, right? But you know what it means. I mean, the idea is that you're not gonna do, I'll do it tomorrow kind of a thought process. You're going to do, I'll do it today. I did it yesterday and I'm doing it today is the thought process that I always lean towards when it came to building this show. So, thank you guys for listening as long as you have, if you're, an old head. And I appreciate everybody that this is their first time listening. Patrick's, very good friend of mine. And he brings such a positive light to the show, and I appreciate him. And, my boy Scott Marin, he's out there banging out the video and the photographs for these latest episodes between Patrick and I. I really appreciate you guys. Mad shout out. This show is come to a place that I feel like it should have came, and I hope it's motivational and inspiring to you guys out there, because that was the whole point. And in a word on episodes, this is not now the Patrick and Morgan show, but I just felt like my man was, he's nothing but solid gold and positive light in the world. And I know that we all needed that. So hence why I brought him on, to the tune of, this is the fifth time I've had Pat on. So, I hope, like me, you guys pull something from every one of the talks that him and I have. And of course you can always hit up Patrick at aware.training/online-training, or just aware.training. And that's his website. So I want you guys to check out Patrick Ryan's website. Check out his Instagram. That's aware_life_ABQ. And then if you get the privilege to interact with my man, you'll definitely see why this is. He's been such a blessing in my life in 2020. So mad kudos to my man. I hope you guys enjoy the episode. Apologies for the long intro, but it is the end of the year. It's around those holidays. And, I do hope to bring you guys some mad cool content. We do also plan to put this entire episode out on YouTube with the actual video that my boy Scott Marin shot for Patrick. So look out for that. I'm going to put that link out on our Facebook and our website as well. And then, of course, pointing back to Pat's YouTube. So I hope you guys enjoy your night, enjoy your morning, get out there and kick some ass, continue to pursue that greatness. And 2021 is your year. All right, guys. Interviews with people pursuing greatness. Live? Tell me, computer. The computer says we're live. Hello out there.
Hola.
All you people pursuing greatness.
Yep.
I'm joined by Mr. Patrick Ryan.
What's up? What's up?
And your host, Morgan. My
Cheers.
SpongeBob mug. So this is one of our more, I think we're actually trying to try, this is where, so there's actually video, and it's, this should be the second one. And this one, we're trying a little bit different setup. So, you should be seeing an evolution of things for the podcast. At least that Pat and I do.
We are not trying. We are doing it.
Ooh, that's what I'm talking about. I like how that was put,
It's happening.
So any updates on your end since I last talked to you?
Let's see what has changed. All good things. My involvement in the online training community has gotten even deeper and more involved, which is super cool. Shout out to the Personal Trainer Development Center and the Online Trainer Academy. So I'm a full-time coach with the Level 2 program that we run for online coaches, and I'm also helping get people on board with our Level 1 Online Trainer Academy certification. So it's fun. Yeah, I feel like as time goes on, I'm getting more and more immersed with a dimension of the industry that is a lot of fun. I feel like I'm part of a trailblazing movement.
Right. You told me about this because this was murky in the past, and now it's kind of the way forward when it comes to things specifically because of COVID. Like you're starting to really invest in that, hence the podcast and a lot of things that can be done in a way that you can kind of just press share on this kind of content. You don't necessarily have to get in your car, drive over to, talk to Pat. I think it's kind of interesting how that was a bet for a long time. It almost reminds me of like the .com era, and that one went that way, but this one had to go this direction because of something like Corona. It wasn't an economic basis for the problem, right? Like when the problem hit, it was like we all had to go that direction,
right.
And
you're forced in, like it's to a point to where it's like you have no choice.
Yeah.
Well, you do. You can not be a part of it, and that's fine as well.
You could just get unemployment. I did it for a while. It's not that bad, Pat. I've done it before. That's called super, super lazy. And not to say that anybody on unemployment's lazy, but I was super lazy during that time. Like I killed it in Battlefield when I was on unemployment. And I even thought about that when this coronavirus hit. I was like, fuck it. I'll just take it and I'll go hang out in my house, get the little payment.
It's your choice. There's plenty of people that are making that decision, and that's up to them.
I'm able-bodied. I can get up. I think anybody that can get up and work, you should. So, I digress. But at one point I did do that, and sure. I was thoroughly enjoying it. And I would think even back then, man, it would have been killer to have an opportunity to do something like go to an academy to learn how to make money online, dude.
Right.
That's legit. So even since then, what are you trying to do for Christmas stuff? How was that lead up? Did you have clients that were coming to you and trying to get them, more? Because I like to kind of touch base with you on kind of like some seasonal, like what are you shouting out to your clients for ways to stay active and stuff like that?
It's pretty simple stuff. Like in all reality, with the holidays in particular, I don't view it, and I don't really coach it much differently than I do whenever clients are going on vacation. I know that's not as much of a thing right now, but kind of breaking the stigma and demystifying and really breaking the stigma and not allowing travel, or in this case, the holidays, to be synonymous with gaining weight, falling off track,
right,
all that kind of stuff. So it's really, really working with clients on reconditioning our mental framework around. We go into vacationing, we go into, say, a busy time of work, but in this case, we go into holidays already kind of. So I almost feel like it's an acute form of like self-sabotage, where we go into this season already expecting a negative outcome,
Right.
because that's what,
Like in the office, it's like cookie season when they're bringing
Right.
cookies like every day, and you're like, well, it's that time of year to eat a million cookies.
right. And a lot of it could be based off previous experience, where it's
Sure.
like we've had I'm 30 years old. I have 30 years worth of holiday seasons under my belt.
Right.
And those experiences can be positive, they can be negative, whatever, they can be neutral relative to my health journey. And that starts to really reinforce one's mindset as to what to expect going into it, as well as culturally and globally. Generally speaking, a lot of people go into the holidays just kind of submitting to the idea that, okay, this is when I'm just going to gain 5, 10, 15
Right.
pounds.
I
And then it's
definitely
part
do
of
that.
this yo-yo kind of dynamic.
Yeah.
And in order for them to feel like they are to make any progress, it's this whole piece with things being synonymous with one another. People kind of view the holidays as being synonymous with or making progress, i.e. not gaining weight or maybe even losing a little bit of weight over the holidays. They view that as being directly tied to restriction and not actually being able to enjoy the holiday meal with their
So not
family.
like truly letting loose and enjoying the holiday because you have this thing in the back of your mind, like
Right.
count these calories.
Sure. Yeah. So it's often looked through a lens of focus tied more deeply to restriction than anything. So it's really been my job with my clients in working together and breaking that stigma, as far as like the more worried you are about going into the holidays like this, you're actually perpetuating your own
Demise.
you could say that, and your own struggle,
Sure.
because you're robbing yourself of the presence of the holiday season. I do understand that the holidays are a very important time, especially during this time of the year, or especially during this year. It's an opportunity just to kind of unwind and relax and let your hair down. And really, the way I view it is be as present as possible with the things and the people that matter the most to you.
So you're saying that I can eat a little bit more than what I should feel bad for eating, if I want to. Or is that what you're saying?
I say do it. I do weekly Zoom calls with my clients, and I did one yesterday, and this was the exact topic we were talking about. I'm traditionally, every family has their own set of traditions as far as what food or meal items that they make, and that's unique to that individual family. I don't think you should change that at all, because that's what's bridging the gap between you and your family.
That's
it's bridging
huge,
the gap between experience.
Yeah.
And it's a celebratory measure, right? It's celebrating, okay, we're spending time with one another. We're grateful for one another. So why on earth? It just never would make any sense for me or any fitness professional to be like, no, you need to do salad this year for Christmas.
Right.
When my
No
family,
enchiladas, how dare you?
yeah, like my family does prime rib.
Yeah.
Like I'm
You
not
ain't cutting out prime rib, man.
Yeah, I'm not gonna not have that.
Yeah.
And I'm not gonna not enjoy it. So really, really working towards everything's gonna work through a continuum. It's gonna work on a spectrum, and understanding that as long as we're as present as we can during this set of holidays, you might end up gaining, who knows, 5, 10 pounds, whatever it might be this holiday season, but not guilting yourself throughout that process, and viewing it as an opportunity of like, it's okay, I can get back on my feet. This is part of the demystifying thing. We have a problem, a widespread problem, where we encounter hurdles, we encounter issues with our diet and just our life as a whole, and we're afraid to actually look at the areas that need improvement.
Right.
So we just kind of act as if they don't exist. Oh, it's whatever. You kind of brush it under the rug, knowing that I won't have to deal with this for another 9 months.
Yeah.
But part of demystifying the experience is like, no, let's compassionately look back at how the holidays went. Where do you feel you could have done a little bit better? And I'm not saying as far as restriction, I'm just saying as far as taking your time during the experience. I'm really big on coaching my clients on slowing down during their eating, eliminating distractions.
Right.
Because really what I've come to find is this anxiety and this worry about, say, the holiday season is actually going to continue to perpetuate the problem that you're trying to get out of, because a lot of people have stress responses relative to their eating, for instance.
Well, and like you said, like you mentioned that, and I apologize for kind of, shooting off to one side with this, but that makes a lot of sense, that sometimes the holidays they bring up bad memories with people, and they could end up using eating, which they could have used all year long, but more so for the holidays, say particularly Christmas, to cope with
Yep.
said,
that was exactly where my head was going.
And do you see a lot of this? Like, is this something that you feel is more often than not, the issue when it comes to somebody around holidays? Like if they say that's a weak spot for them, does it typically come from them having like bad restriction, mindset and that coming from an emotional place for holidays? Do you see that like with your clients?
Well, not just I would say the holidays are really just a microcosm of any other time of the year relative to people's relationship with food and relationship with their own eating, because you go into these instances, holidays in this particular case, with predetermined anxiety. So you're already worried about it.
Right.
So that's already creating stress within you. Okay. So it doesn't matter if it's stress about the holidays or say prior you're dealing with stress in your family or you're dealing with stress in work. I think we've all been there. I'm definitely a stress eater. If I get stressed, I tend to gravitate towards foods that are going to help make me calm me down.
Like your cookies.
Sure. Yeah. So you're already stressed to begin with. So you've got this stress response going into a time of the year where the holidays are, I would hope, more often than not, a really good thing and a good experience for a lot of people. It's an element and a realm of home and stability. So you have that tied with food. So you want to be calmed down. You want to be relaxed during the holidays. So you have food that's going to help pave the way for that experience as well. But,
comfort food.
Right.
But
where things can get a little bit tricky is when more often than not, when we're stressed, it tends to lead, and I'm going based off my own experience as well as experience with hundreds of other clients, where the stress response tends to perpetuate a quickened state of eating, a quickened state of motion. So you get stressed. I think we've all been there and you feel like, oh, I've got to do more to help mitigate this stress.
Right.
When it almost kind of creates like a snowball effect. So you're eating so much quicker because you're stressed, because you're trying to mitigate that stress, as opposed to just being, and it's going to be different for everybody, but taking the time to just relax, take maybe 3-5 minutes, try to calm yourself down as best you can,
right,
and put together a game plan as to mentally, you don't have to do it out in the open with everybody, but put together a mental game plan of, okay, I'm noticing that I'm stressed. How am I going to do the best I can going into this next meal? Right. And really, because if we continue to move 100 miles an hour downhill in the snowball effect, we're losing and we're robbing ourselves of presence with the actual meal. Right.
Because Christmas is typically like a reflective time. You almost reflect on the whole year. You know what I mean? And instead of staying in the moment, you're kind of looking back. And specifically with this year, there's going to be a lot of people that don't have the best stories that they've had.
Right.
You know what I mean? Since last Christmas. And you're sitting there and if you're pondering that rather than like, actually getting that to spend a little bit of time with some family that maybe you haven't been able to all year. Even if that be like, I'm going to do a virtual situation with my dad and my family, up north, for Christmas. And, if I was preoccupied, I don't think that I could appreciate that as well, and I do have a habit of overeating. I think if I do have like a stressed out, like camping trip, let's say, like, I don't know, I've had, kids go camping and comparatively to like a holiday, it's not as important, but stress throughout the day. And then at night, I'll eat, just crazy. And not to say that that's the stress response specifically, but I would say that it's probably, for me, that's a way that I could really understand that mindset. And going into like Christmas, I think that it's hard to, you got family that are going to want to shove food down your throat anyways. And you came up with this game plan and you were handling business, but Aunt so-and-so comes over with her homemade pie and you've already had 2 plates, and it's like, oh, my plan's going out the window. You know what I mean? So I could totally, I think that that's one of those things that I honestly have not contemplated until you and I really started talking and doing these types of conversations is, how these bigger meals affect people and the populace. It's got to have a trickle down effect. Like, your happiness. So do you feel fulfilled after that Christmas party, whether or not you had 2 plates or if you, only had a little bit and stuck to your plan, because I think like what you're saying is to be mindful of the people you're around, and really reflect on the situation as it comes rather than being preoccupied. And no matter if you eat a little bit more than you meant to, that's okay. And I think that, at the end of the day, we all are going to like you said, I assume that I'm going to gain more weight in December. I just don't run as much. I don't, for myself, I don't do a lot of those things, but I have a bad habit of doing that where I'm essentially going into the holiday, stressed about work, and it could be life stuff. I mean, and I really think this is something that people should, rewind and play again what Pat just said about really being in the moment, because that's something that, I mean, you preach about constantly, but to do it during a holiday, like those memories matter, and if you miss that because you were, depressed Wendy or whatever in the corner, eating your whole pie, I feel like you're gonna miss the whole point of the holidays, and it really can be a therapeutic thing, to be in your home with your family and enjoying like that good comfort food, and that's a heavy duty subject, man. What do you think about people that in these yo-yo diets, they step into that mindset of, well, I can glutton for December, but then I'm going to jump into the gym January 1st, and that's my excuse is to go start doing that. I mean, that kind of goes against the grain of what you preach, because you talk about constantly moving, not just moving that one time.
Sure.
Because you feel bad about it. What advice do you have for people that may have had that mindset? Like they're waiting till after Christmas in order to turn on the switches.
I say more power to you. I'm not here to rule your life.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So the bigger question I would ask is, how's that working for you long term?
Right.
Because really as time goes on, and this is through experience with many, many clients, is really looking at how your habits and how your patterns within the year, to where it's like, hey, if that's how you like doing things and that brings joy and it's not that stressful for you to go through the holidays and gain whatever it might be, 10, 15, 20 pounds, and then spend the next 4 months
working it off,
really working hard to work it off. Like that's your gig, man.
Yeah.
But really where I start to look at things through a longer term lens is, what kind of habits are we setting up for ourselves long term? And I really like looking at it through the lens of ultimately you're not going to stay, we all are not going to stay as mobile and as active as we would always prefer. We're getting older with every second that passes. Right. So whether it's old age that's going to continue limiting our movement, or throughout the process of aging, we experience an injury, what are we falling back on? Because movement in some way, shape, or form is going to be taken from us. Like I said, whether it's through an injury or we get so old that we can't work out as hard as we usually would work out in the past. What other habits are you falling back on as a fail-safe? So what will happen is, the example that you gave, that's cool. You go ham for, let's just say, pretty much from as soon as Halloween hits to to the new year, you go for it, and that's fine. Well, what happens if you get injured and you're sidelined and you don't have sustainable, healthy eating habits in place to fall back on? Right.
Because so you're laid up and you're kind of eating the same way.
Well, and you're so used to this framework of being like, well, I can outwork my diet. And it's not just outwork or out exercise your diet. It's feeling like you can out exercise your habits.
Yeah.
So
I'm very guilty of that, Pat. 100%. You nailed it on the head for me, because when I'm not training, I can tell that I start, all the crap that I can eat when I'm training and I'm running a lot. Man, it catches up with me. It instantly slows me down. That's awesome that you said that. I think that's something people don't think about.
My thing in this, but this is where, again, people view this kind of, can have a tendency to view this kind of information advice as like, no, go to full restriction. Keep in mind, I've never made mention once that you've got to restrict yourself during the holidays or when you travel or whenever things get hectic. It's finding a balance.
Sure.
And understanding that, okay, maybe going completely ham during the holiday season, that might be a little bit far on the extreme end of the spectrum. How do we just dial that back a little bit?
Yeah.
And maybe integrate a little bit of movement during that time.
Right.
That way. And it's really looking at things over a longer term lens. I'm not expecting people to have this things completely change perfectly for the better in one holiday season. This takes time.
Right.
I work with people who are in their mid 30s, their 40s, mid 40s, their 50s. Like, you've got a lifelong amount of habits ingrained and conditioning ingrained into who you are. So this is where I come from when I say, going through the experience in this particular instance, live through the holidays, do whatever you've got to do, try to be as present as you can as to what's going on, and then take a breath again, look back on the holiday season in this particular case, and look at, okay, what would I like to do a little bit differently next year?
Right.
And then you work on implementing that the next holiday season.
So
and then you continue to refine that approach with each year. So from year 1 to year 3 to year 5, you've got this really, really cool, unique body of work and evolution of your habits, how you go about taking part in the holiday season. It's from year 1 to say year 5, it's going to look completely different.
That's huge, bro.
But it's looking at it through a continuum and how you're making subtle little tweaks over time.
Sure. Not a cycle of glutton, and then hitting these crazy yo-yo diets and or working out, like you said, kind of getting ahead of your diet, but essentially trying to keep it a balance, and doing it over the course of 6 years. That's something I think is missed in a lot of, we talk about this in all the episodes, but one of the reasons why I like to talk about this and, this has gravitated to where it's been is I've always been one to exercise the way that I do. And not once have I ever sold into any of the diets that that you would go to social media or you'd go to an influencer. You can even go to Walmart right now and you can find the fat burning pills and stuff like that. But not a single time has it ever made me faster. Has it made me stronger? I even tried the GNC thing, and I did all the proteins and powders, and I felt like it was a glutton. It was too much. It was just this box of calories is all I was eating while I was trying to lift, I think that even in those mindsets where I've never sold into one way or the other, I've noticed that I still have those fluctuations that come with a shorter scope, almost like you're saying, like my scope is usually like 1 year. How do I feel this year compared to how I was last year? Not how do I feel 6 years ago? You know what I mean? Or you know what I'm trying to say? Like almost how was I 6 years ago compared to now, and trying to look at it that way, because there was a time when I quit running and I did get heavier. And I remember trying to, get up out of bed, and I was like kind of doing this like sideways whale thing to like get up because my ab muscles were just kind of mush, and I was mad at myself because I was like, I had never taken into account how long it had been since I had last worked out. I got to a point and then I stopped and I let it go for a little while, and I got kind of cocky and I could eat whatever I wanted and stuff like that. 20 extra pounds came along, and then I woke up again and I said, oh man, I got to start, essentially taking care of myself again. But I think if I had ever had somebody just kind of in my ear explaining, you need to have a balance rather than this crazy yo-yoing, even if I'm not doing it through fad diets. There might be a lot of people listening that have that same habit. Like you're not a major athlete, nor are you like trying to diet extremely, but you're kind of in that place where when Christmas comes, you're not really sure how to limit yourself. And I think that limiting or restricting, those terms can be used, I think, in a positive way. And that's essentially what you're alluding to, I think. But like with me, man, like I'm going to probably end up gorging myself on like meats. I'm a bit, if I get like the Christmas ham, the Christmas turkey, and that's something I'm real big on. I try to think about that as like my protein, you know what I mean? And just count up that protein. And then, maybe make like 2-3 meals out of that same food, like I could probably eat, a ton of pie to go with it and all that, but I'll try to like wait on the pie, maybe have that a few hours later. We're all staying up pretty late Christmas night, maybe that weekend, even of course, New Year's, everybody's staying up, you're making questionable decisions on food. But I try to think of like even a plate. Sometimes I'll eat part of it and put it back in the microwave, come back to it and finish it later on. And that's a way for me to like get an obscene amount of food, but I don't feel expected to chunk it all down while I'm watching a football game or I'm hanging out with family. Sure. I'm usually drinking. I'm sure most people are during, the holidays. And I try to limit myself. And a friend of mine, shout out Fox, is switched over as a way to lose weight in terms of compared to typical habits, right? So learning, went to whiskey instead of beer and drinks a lot less alcohol now, but cut his calories in half. And if this may be a tactic somebody uses for the holidays, when you have that brother, cousin, whoever, aunt, uncle, whoever comes over that brings the beer, typically, you could have a little bottle of a whiskey to swap that out. I've seen people that have done the salad and like almost like a vegan holiday meal. I don't lean in any of those types of directions, but, when I want to go for vegetables, I'll go for the steamed stuff or any sort of, cooked vegetables and try to pair that with an equal size portion of protein. So these are just, ideas that I'm coming up with. And there are ways that I've kind of learned to like limit myself. But I still feel that I'm gluttonous, and I'm, that's why I always have the ears open to listen to Pat's tutelage. Cause I'm like, man, I gotta, constantly learn and constantly have that longer scope where I try to look at balance in a longer timeline, because by the time I'm 40, if I'm fucking off in all my 30s, I'm gonna be in the doctor's office. You know what I'm saying? And I think a lot of people can attest to that,
Yeah, it'll make things much more difficult, but even based on what you're saying and some of the stuff that you've experienced, you're already experiencing your own evolution. You know what I mean? You've gone the route of buying a bunch of supplements. I started there.
Yeah.
Like I did the same thing when I was doing bodybuilding. I was spending hundreds upon hundreds of dollars on supplements every month. And then I was doing very, very restrictive, you know what I mean? So like,
I mean, you look svelte as a minx though. Those pictures are hot.
But you know, it's important to keep in mind, like I'm not perfect. I got to where I'm at through conscious adjustment and evolution in my own routine, in my own experience, and in my own journey. So it came. I too came from a place of super crazy restriction to a point to where it was very unhealthy for me, and I decided I would make an adjustment. So it's not you don't just pop into this new space of enlightenment around your eating, your habits, how you cope, out of nowhere. Like, this takes time. I'm coming up on realistically 10 years, a decade. You know, I started that journey when I was like 19 years old.
Sure. And when you met at Pat, I'm sure you weren't making like a notepad list of things to do. You were just slowly changing little habits as time went on. It wasn't
it's all through experience. That's all it comes down to. You know, my entry into health and fitness was through the bodybuilding community. Or you could say it came even earlier. It was through sports. I played baseball, and then I knew as soon as I was done playing baseball that I was going to make the shift to all natural bodybuilding. And I gave that a shot for 2 to 3 years. It ran its course. I pushed it to where I was going to really hurt myself physically. And I was going to impact my health pretty badly long-term if I kept going. And I decided, okay, I'm going to stop. And then just things, as time went on, I just made subtle tweaks based on what made sense to me. And that's how I'm at where I'm at.
Subtle. I like that.
Well,
I think that's the word of the day, subtle and maybe balanced, you know?
Yeah. Like it's really interesting because the more and more I see people fight it with feeling like, I've had people just be so adamant, I need a meal program. I need a strict workout program. It's like, sure, if that's what you want, that's what you want. You might as well go somewhere else to find that, because that's not how I roll. Yeah. But ultimately, you are going to be forced back into the position and back into the space that you're trying to escape from. A lot of people, especially in this world, in this realm of reality and time that we're in, we're very, very used to, and we prefer things being done very quickly. Right. And it's the modern mindset. And man. I know that's really nice and that's really fun. But when it comes to things like our health and our well-being long-term, you can't escape it. You're going to be forced back into this space that makes you uncomfortable. It forces you to really, really acknowledge, okay, I'm being nudged back into the space of understanding that this is going to take time, and I can't rush this. Right. Yeah, you really can't. I mean, like I look at situations in the past, right? I read a lot of history books, and I look at situations in the past, like 1800s, even before that time. And you never had somebody trying to go through a diet regimen. You didn't have, and granted, science wasn't science back then, on and so forth. There's a lot of conversations to be had, but there were a lot of similar snake oil charmer types, that were trying to sell you a bill of goods. And a lot of time it wasn't they weren't selling stuff to, lose weight in mass. You didn't have these big proteins and stuff, or, protein and supplement lines that, you had people selling. Granted, they didn't understand the concept, and there were things that were like that. But I think it's because they didn't have the option, right? Like you literally had to move your body in order to survive. Like it was just part of the deal, no matter what you were doing. Something as basic as just being cold constantly because you didn't have central heating because, how far back you were, you're constantly burning, calories. Most people were having issues finding calories rather than having a glutton of calories. And I don't think I mean, like all of us in fucking 2020, none of us are having an issue with that, in particular, and a lot of those problems. But sometimes I like to think of that whenever I'm getting up to go for a workout, or I am trying to limit myself in one way or another, no matter what this
direction is, if it's food, if it's behavior, staying up too late, if I want to play another round of this game, if I want to, all these things. A lot of times I laugh because I'm like, I have these options, and a lot of times I'm curious as to how often we choose these options that are the lackadaisical ones. And to us, they're easier, and that's human nature to go for the easier route, sure. But in terms of evolution, we didn't get here by going easier, and it seems like the easier we try to make our lives, almost the reverse effect happens. You have more visiting the doctor, you have more pain, you have more hurting, you have more psychological issues, which we've talked about in depth in the last couple episodes, that can stem from exactly what it is that you're eating, as well as what you are not doing. So I try to remind myself constantly, like, fuck, man, when I have a complaint about, my stomach being full, this is a modern problem to have, and in the same breath, when I have a complaint about, how fat I am, after the holidays, again, it's a decision I made, and it's a modern day, a decision for me to make, and it reinforces, like you said, like you almost can kill yourself. You can almost undo yourself, if you're not constantly putting, at least in the back of your mind, like, I need to have a plan involved. And the older you get, the worse it gets, like if I fuck around I've only been fucking around. I haven't been running for about 2 weeks now, and I've probably already gained 5 or 6 pounds, and it's because you nailed it. My symptoms are that I try to outrun my diet. Mm-hmm. And at this point I'm not running. Right. So here I am getting caught up. So now I need to, reflect, and I need to kind of strategize as to how I can make this, a little better. Now, granted, they're fucking with our gyms because of COVID. Thank you, COVID. But I used to supplement with that as well. And even though they're open right now, I'm like, I don't even want to fucking go to go have COVID stuff. Are you going to a gym at all?
For the most part, no. But this you talking about this makes me think about everybody. Understandably, everybody's going to be different, but I think what really comes to mind for me when you bring stuff up like that around your exercise and things within modern day, I really think about how it is, in one way, shape, or form, it's our responsibility to try and make healthy options and a healthy lifestyle more readily available, because sure. I think many of us have started to see this to where, and there's nothing wrong with having gyms out there and all that kind of stuff. I think they're great, and it is a huge drag that they're closed, but it's like, okay, it forces the responsibility back on the individual. So it's a matter of like, is my environment and is my life conducive to a healthy lifestyle?
Right. Overall.
Yeah. And it's forced everybody in one way, shape, or form to really run a heavy audit on that, to where it's like, well, okay, let's play worst case scenario. Is my health contingent upon having a gym open and available? So if that gym closes, am I screwed?
Right.
And I think that's that's a problem. So obviously my situation is going to be different because my life just centers around health. So that's at the forefront of my mind pretty much every waking moment. So where I was already gravitating to a space to where I was getting tired of a conventional gym. Yes, I train just a small number of clients at a private boutique studio. So I've got access to a small private space, but even beyond that, I've been slowly working on creating different avenues of available movement for me. So my garage, for instance,
my garage is sexy as fuck. He's got that. What do you call that liner on the ground that you have in your garage? It's like Rhino sexy.
Of course,
orange limousine drop.
Of course, shout out to Chris Grigsby at Champion Carpet Care. He did that.
Nice. Well done, sir.
The epoxy.
Okay.
Yeah. So my garage is not going to hold a car. It's going to house our health.
Right.
And as time goes on, putting a few pieces of equipment in there, it obviously houses our road bikes and our mountain bikes. So that's another piece of gym equipment, stuff of that sort.
Tool in your medicine bag.
Yes.
If you guys want to catch up on that?
Exactly. So that's where my mind goes. I had turf, installed in our backyard, where it's just like, okay, worst case scenario, if we've got to be in this position for however long it might be, it could be a year, 2 years, it could be forever, to where it's like, okay, I don't have an excuse anymore. I don't have an excuse as to, okay, I can't exercise. I don't have an excuse as to, I can't make good food. I need to make that stuff as readily available as humanly possible, because we all know, we've been here and we've been there. in many different ways, to where there's so many different barriers to entry when it comes to staying active, getting good exercise.
Well, and a lot of that, like we talked about before, is kind of mental too. Like just to get past that hump of getting your clothes on and going outside sometimes is really hard for some people, because they've got a lot of those mental barriers that are keeping them down before you even get to the gyms being closed and COVID and all of its shit that it brings with it. Sorry, I'm talking a lot about COVID today.
You're good.
I'm trying to stay away from it. It's like it's always on our minds. I think you're right though about the potential for people consistently putting easy buttons around their house, basically. You know, I have a bad habit of that at work, because I'm usually pressed for time, and I have no problem burning through a bag of frozen burritos for lunch. You know, like that's my go-to. I even bought Huel. Excuse me. I think I told you that I bought Huel. No, I haven't told you about that.
The only Huel I know of is Huel in Better Call Saul. Do you remember him? Okay, yeah, that's the only Huel I know.
That's that big old dude, right?
Yeah,
Huel, I forgot about that guy. No, Huel. Huel. Yeah. It's actually really, it's really not bad. I don't mind it at all. I tried Soylent in the past. I don't know if you're savvy on Soylent.
I've heard of it.
Yeah, and it's like soy plant-based. No good. Fucks my stomach up. So I didn't like that. I've tried all the different flavors. I've tried the ready-to-go ones.
So this is a supplement you're talking about.
It's a supplement, but it's supposed to be a meal replacement, and purely under the guise of there's not supposed to be like a Slim Fast kind of marketing scheme to it. It is literally food that you're supposed to be able to eat in place of food, right? Which is what I guess Slim Fast is in the greater scheme of things. Mm-hmm. And not to say I'm buying into any marketing scheme. This is literally the fact that I can open a bottle and drink lunch and then just walk away, 200 calories in the belly. So I tried Huel, and it comes in these giant like bags, and you scoop the powder in, 400 calories, and it's all, healthy stuff that goes into it. No milk based or anything like that. I tried to put that as my easy button at work, because there's no bad fats in it. It's like scientifically proven that it has what's in it that you could live on that indefinitely. Mm-hmm. Eating it 3 meals a day, which I don't think anybody would fucking do. It's not like made of magic, but it doesn't taste bad. I can drink it. And that's my easy button, right? At work. Instead of a bag of, frozen burritos, which I'm sure, even though they're probably not that bad for you, they're probably not that good for you either.
Everything lies on a continuum, man.
That's it.
And it's all circumstantial.
But right now I'm not outrunning my burritos, Pat.
Right. But like the reason I bring up the circumstantial piece, and I think it's important for everybody to know this, and I always like bringing stuff up relative to we're always working through a continuum. A perfect example is I'm working with a client right now.
Okay.
Was spending a lot of money buying fast food, ordering out every single night. Okay. Very, very busy schedule. So for me as his coach to come at him and say, okay, here's what you need to do. By the way, he wasn't doing a lot of grocery shopping either. So this leap to telling him, okay, you need to start grocery shopping. And on top of that, you need to plan out your dinners. And you need to cook these dinners ahead of time. When your schedule is already pressed, you're already pressed for time.
Sure.
The likelihood of him doing that is not very good.
Right.
So this is where the art of working people through a continuum and a spectrum is really important. Understanding, and this is why I'm so big on you have to look long term. You have to understand, okay, on the horizon, way off in the distance, this is where I want to go with my eating, but we have to put together realistic steps as to how to get there. So with this client in particular, it was like, okay, he needed to do 2 things. He wasn't eating breakfast, so he likes bananas, he likes apples, so I made the recommendation, just buy those things and snack on them whenever you get up in the morning.
Right.
That's a win. We're not going to be eating those breakfast items forever. I know at some point in time you may want to make more of a eggs, toast type thing, but that's what's going to get us there. We just need to start the act of eating a little bit of something in the morning. And then for dinner, to adjust his habit to where he's not spending as much money on ordering out and having something available at home. I recommended to him, buy frozen food. Buy frozen food. Okay. Yes, buy frozen food at the frozen food aisle at the grocery store. Get how much ever you need for the week. That way, when you get home, you're already in the routine and the habit of, I don't need to order out. I've got something in the fridge. I'm going to throw it in the microwave. I'm going to heat it up. We're not going to do that forever. But this is inching him along that continuum of knocking out a multitude of birds with one stone and going to the grocery store. It's like, okay, you're getting into the habit of going to the grocery store, planning your meals ahead of time. I don't care if they're frozen at this point in time. Where I'm focused on the act, and I'm focused on the habit of you're thinking ahead when it comes to your eating. So you're purchasing based on that. So you've gone to the grocery store, you've put together a menu. I don't care if it's frozen food at this point in time. We'll spend a couple weeks doing that, and then we'll start making subtle modifications to where, okay, maybe this is hypothetical, but maybe week 3, we keep his breakfast the same of eating the fruits.
Right.
And then with the dinners, we keep, say, he's grocery shopping for 5 dinners and all of them are frozen.
Sure.
Okay. Keep 4 frozen dinners this next time that you grocery shop. Still buy 4 frozen dinners, and let's try one meal that you maybe prepare, or maybe it's a little bit healthier.
And this is the next week, right? Like we're moving on as we progress.
We're like changing. Down in week 3 or week 4. But this is where having a strong means of communication with this client is really going to be helpful, because I don't want to push them too fast.
Sure.
This habit of just going to the grocery store and making these adjustments right now could take him 3 weeks, 4 weeks to get down to where it doesn't feel as much of a headache.
Right.
That's fine.
Well, and it keeps them out of the weeds when it comes to the science that you understand behind dieting. That's super smart, because you're essentially just giving him a top-down view of here's the direction to go. I don't need to get into proteins and fats.
It's a habits-based approach. And it's known as outcome-based decision making. So
fucking cool.
What do we want the outcome being long term?
Yeah.
We have to map that out. What's the big goal? And it's my job to, a phrase that I always really enjoy is experts simplify, beginners complicate.
Sure.
Okay. So then this works really, really well in these particular instances, working with clients where it's like, I am the expert on implementing the adjustment and integration of these habits. You, as the client, you're the expert in your own life.
Right.
I don't know how you live your life. I don't know what your routine is like. So you providing that expert information as to what your life looks like, how busy your schedule is, when you eat, when you don't eat, all that kind of stuff. That is such valuable information that I can't read your mind.
Right.
So you providing that information to me is going to be really, really helpful to make sure that I'm able to tailor fit these subtle tweaks and adjustments to your existing framework.
Right.
To help get you slowly but surely to that desired outcome that you've always wanted to get to. But people think in order to get there, they've got to jump. It's no different than looking at the Sandias and being like, okay, I've never hiked before. I'm going to hike to the top of the mountain. It doesn't make it's not realistic.
Right.
And this is where you create these. A lot of people, I don't think, have a good feel for this, but this is where you create these disordered experiences. And in regards to eating, you have these distorted and disordered viewpoints on the journey. So like we'll use the hiking analogy. So someone who's never hiked looks at the La Luz Trail and they're like, cool, I'm going to hike the whole thing.
Right.
And next thing you know, they have to be airlifted.
Right.
So
or they buy a bag and overload it and they're just so tired.
Right. But then they associate hiking with not being for them.
Right.
It's like, no, it's the way you went about it. So why not build ourselves up to being able to hike the whole thing? Maybe the first time you go, you drive to the trailhead and you maybe hike 15 minutes one way, 30 minutes round trip, and you call it a day.
Yeah, yeah.
And then the next week you maybe do 20, and then you build yourself up until next thing you know, over a month, or I don't care, it could be a year, you end up, you're at a point to where you're able to hike up the entire thing and then take the tram down. It's got to be more methodical.
Right. You got to work your way up. No, that's 100%. You just related to me very heavily. And I was going to avoid going into running, but I just want you to know you started this.
That's fine.
But I worked my way up to run La Luz. And just for anybody that doesn't know what we're talking about, it's like one of the main trails getting up to the top of the Sandias. We've talked about it in episodes past.
It's literally 8 miles up a mountain.
Yeah. And it's like
a half marathon almost.
Yeah. It's very much up. Like it is a lot of climbing. And then you hit a rock slide where you could break every ankle known to man trying to get up there. A lot of people get pulled off that mountain for doing exactly what he said, going out way too soon. And I actually had to work my way up to running that. So I did a bunch of smaller hills every weekend trying to get myself developed to where if I went out there, I wanted to be able to self-sustain even if shit went south for me. Mm-hmm. So, you know, those are things that if I had just tried to tackle that, a great example of that. In February, I tried to go just wearing shorts and a t-shirt and running shoes. And I ran into a lot of snow and it forced me to go back. And I was completely soaked. I was cold, but was moving, so I stayed warm, but yeah, very ill prepared for that, and that was too much too soon. I didn't pay attention. I didn't do my strategizing. I didn't do my homework to see what essentially what obstacles are going to come my way in order to achieve my goal. And my goal for the day was run to the top and back. And I hadn't ran La Luz since I was like 13. I don't think I ran it. I hiked it. So I was really biting off a lot. Fast forward, after I hurt my ankle and did a lot of other stuff, all the way up to October, I was able to do 20 miles, climbing to the top of La Luz and running around the mountain and come back down. I talked about this last time, but that goes hand in hand with what you're talking about. Like, I have been in situations where I've even ran out, way far away from my house and fucked up for many different reasons, including, too much too soon, wrong gear, too hot, iliotibial band jumping on me, literally calling my wife in tears and having her come get me because I can't move my fucking leg. And I'm like, babe, it hurts. Like, I've had those scenarios, and I can tell you from a running perspective, that is 100%. Like, you can look at the top of that mountain, but you have got to take your time.
Right. And the thing that fascinates me, and this is what blows my mind with how we as humans operate, like, these are I just view them as universal truths of life.
Right.
We somehow think that our health and our fitness is not directly tied to every other aspect of our lives. So
right.
You're talking
like, you got to have some special
It's
knowledge.
no different with weightlifting. It's no different with your grocery shopping and your eating. You're making mention of it relative to your experience with exercise or running.
Right.
Scott's here doing photography and videography. It's no different with his career. Like, you got to just take your time.
Right.
And you've got to trudge through
10,000 hour rule.
And the journey of 1,000 miles starts with one step, man. And you just keep taking those small incremental steps. There are going to be instances where you fall to your knees and you crawl. There's going to be instances where you have to stop and take a break. But over the grand scheme of things, you will see a body of work that is full of continued motion, no matter how slow it might be. But it fascinates me how hard we work as people trying to escape that fact.
Right.
It's
even though it's the truth, it's the gorilla in the room.
Yeah. How did anybody ever get to where they wanted to get in their career?
Right.
Like, it took time.
How did anybody break the 4-minute record for the mile?
Right.
They
know what I mean?
They didn't do it the first time they ran.
No. So it's going to take time. It's a matter of putting together a methodical approach and making sure that not only over time you're able to get there, but you're actually able to enjoy the experience of getting there.
Enjoy the journey.
Yes.
Yeah, we're good. Took a little siesta to fill up the brown water, the pep drink here, the coffee from my man Pat. I had to get my nice black coffee in my SpongeBob mug. So Merry Christmas to everybody.
Happy holidays.
By the way,
Christmas,
yeah, happy holidays. Happy Kwanzaa, Hanukkah. No, that's terrible. It's Kwanzaa and Hanukkah, right? What's Christmas, Kwanzaa, Hanukkah? What does Adam Sandler say?
I don't know.
It's Christmas.
Oh,
Hanukkah,
in his
Kwanzaa.
song.
Yeah.
Oh, I forgot. I forgot he even did that.
I don't even know if that's politically correct anymore. But happy holidays to you guys out there. Yeah. So I wanted to try to like touch on some shit that Pat's got going on, bro. So Within the Ruins. I don't know if you're savvy on the metal band Within the Ruins.
I have not heard of them.
Highly recommend one of their albums.
Scott seems to dig it.
Oh yeah, I didn't even. You listen to Within the Ruins? It's fire, bro. Yeah. So my buddy Fox, shout out to Fox, had recommended it to me. So I was checking that out. I for whatever reason, I started getting really deep into lo-fi hip hop remixes.
Okay, cool.
And they take like jams, like, I don't know, everything from like Drake to like, murder your cousin kind of music, gangster stuff. And just lo-fi's it. And it's this dude, Zeus Makes Music. Shout out Zeus Makes Music. This dude just puts out some bangers. Now, why is that important? Because for 5 hours of me doing this marathon that I did in November, all I listened to was Zeus Makes Music, because it was just this mellow, beautiful sound. But that's been like my latest, and I swing anywhere from like Within the Ruins back over to like this like lo-fi rap, and then I've got like bluegrass, and then I'll get up into like some punk. What have you been listening to lately, brother?
Let's see. Well, while we were on break, I was trying to get more specific, and I love the whole thing that Spotify has done, where they just kind of analyze your entire year, stuff of that sort. So, yeah. So like, obviously I'm a fan of rock and metal, but I've really gravitated away from that for quite a while now. So, I'm a huge fan of an artist by the name of Blockhead.
Yes, I love Blockhead.
Okay, cool,
Yes.
cool. So you're familiar. So he does really really good hip hop type beats. That's definitely been my genre for quite a while. So I love his stuff. I also really really love listening to Chrome Sparks.
Okay.
Much different kind of synth heavy electronic music. Let's see who else do I have on my
Are you a DJ Shadow fan?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. DJ Shadow's really good. I like his stuff. DJ Crush, I really, really enjoy. Let's see who else. Dirty Art Club is another
Okay.
group that I really like.
And do you like, a lot of people talk about, I'm in this running group and they're always talking about like, what's your go-to running song? And I don't know, I don't think I have one of those, but like, do you have one? Like a workout song, let's say, like your go-to? Mine was Blind from Korn for a long time.
Yeah.
That was like my grab the wand and do a 400, you know?
Right.
You know, and I was like, oh my God, you know, like get the chills and like lose your, you know, your flipping mind when you're trying to run.
Right.
Do you have something?
Let's see. Workout wise, I don't know that I have one at this point in time. I kind of usually just put whatever on. That used to be different. A few years ago, I used to have particular songs that I would queue up. More often than not, I seem to have a few songs that I just like listening to help amp. I kind of view them as anthem songs for just to help keep me in tow and in perpetuate positive momentum with all the stuff that I'm doing.
Sure.
With my work, because it's very easy to go to a place of being like, okay, this isn't going where I want it to be going. Is this as successful as I'm wanting it to be, et cetera, et cetera. So I do have a few songs that when I listen to them, it's very much like, okay, you're on the right path. You're doing the right thing.
Are you a lyrics guy or like a beat kind of guy? Like what are you tuned into when you're jamming? Do you have to hear like some sort of like Led Zeppelin, like kind of, you know, like awesome, I guess that's I should use I don't know, somebody that's like, you know, got some sort of like you know, like a storyline kind of a thing.
Sure. I'm a fan of both. You know, if both can be done well, mashed together, in a song with good melody, good beats, and good lyrics, it's kind of perfect unison for me. Yeah. But I also really, really love just instrumental stuff to where it's very open to interpretation. So I've always enjoyed that part of things where everybody's going to interpret it differently to such a point to where, for me, I will hear certain sounds and they will elicit a particular set of feelings that are connected to different experiences that I had. And for some reason, it seems like it's in perfect unison. It makes sense, as opposed to someone might hear that and it might elicit a completely different feeling. But yeah, that's part of the reason. That's part of the reason why I enjoy some hip hop and stuff of that sort, because I do genuinely enjoy the bravado.
Who's like one of your favorite hip hop guys?
Well, that's the thing. I'm still discovering it. Like there's a song, and I think it's a remix, and I'm learning more and more and more as time goes on. They're more like hip hop esque, trap esque blend of electronic music. But there's a song by I think the artist's name, I'm gonna have to look it up because I'm learning as I go here. So
there, while you're looking, I found a guy on my little lo-fi journey that I did. NLE Choppa. I'd never heard of him before. Okay, but this guy, some bangers, man, and that guy, I was like, oh, you know, like. He's, you know, murder and gangbanging, right? Go to his Instagram and I start looking him up, and this guy is deep in the vegan world and the healthy eating world, and I mean tattoos and grills, bro, and like everything you could think of with the rapper. But like he has like post after post of these deep, like kind of like third eye kind of posts, and I was honestly blown away. Like I was, you know, just kind of like looking through these different guys that would pop up, and a lot of them are like in jail. You know, they're so gangbanger that they literally are in jail for what they were rapping about. One guy made a music video that's super popular while he was on the run. It was used in court against him.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, like 16-year-old kid, you know, great music. But then it switches over. But I was blown away. I was like, this fool is actually like vegan. And like he like speaks gangster, but in vegan, and like tries to tell people to drink more water. And I was like, I'm proud of this man. And his music is so hard.
That's funny.
Shout out NLE Chopper.
That's funny.
Did you figure out who it was?
Yeah. So it's a remix by an artist by the name of Decap, and the song is called Remedy by Jay Essential and another artist by the name of Spoose. I think it's Spose.
Spoose. I'm gonna come up with a band name. I'm gonna call myself.
I don't.
Spoose.
Right now, that's my go-to. Just
jam right now.
Just gas yourself up, but it's got a good beat. In my opinion, it's a very good remix, and I really like the lyrics. But that's also part of what has me gravitating towards hip hop in some way, shape, or form. Because what I really enjoy about it is it's people talking about how confident they are in themselves.
Exactly. Oh,
and it's
bro.
just like, okay, I can dig that. I think everybody should be listening to something like that. That they don't have to be outwardly throwing it out to everybody, but I think everybody should be listening to something that they're speaking these words back to themselves as far as like, yes, I am confident in what I am doing. I am confident in my mission.
Right. This time of investment is worth it. I'm working.
The shit.
Yeah.
I'm the shit. And I'm gonna
right here, bro. This is gonna go. The only reason why I'm getting so excited about this is because I've been trying to talk somebody into into exploring rap, but also trying to explain why I like rap for the last 12 years. I won't say any names, my wife. And that's exactly it. So I'm going to replay this for her and be like, babe, listen, Pat nailed it because it builds my confidence. That is why I like to listen to gangbanging.
Well, and it's been really interesting because I wasn't like that, or I wasn't really interested in that style of music as much, or if any at all, when I was in my early and mid 20s. And there's also another element of it that I enjoy, that it does in its own way. It comes off very aggressive, and it's a very unique way to kind of vent energy.
I think when you still look at it through the lens of it being art, I think it's hard to like avoid. Like now that I'm older, I can kind of understand where I couldn't before, because my teens and my 20s were filled with metal shows. And like when I would have family members that are, conservative on any scale, really just not listening to metal, like you're either in that club or you're not, they would be like, why the hell do you like? And I was in a metal band for a long time, and I had family members that would come and watch me scream on the microphone, and they're like, I don't get why you like that. Like they just didn't understand it, and now that I look back, I can see that I actually felt like I missed out on a lot of like what the art piece of it was, because I had a lot of judgment for hip hop back in the day. And now I'm like slowly getting into where now I can understand that they're just basically speaking a farce in a lot of ways. And it's just like metal music. Like death metal is not about the band literally going and, killing, raping, pillaging. That's just that happens to be the lyrics to their music, and it's an art form. They're actually peaceful hippie dudes, right? That when they get on their tour bus, or their, drinkers or whatever. But as weird as that is to say, like, I think that was the thing I never appreciated. Like, it always seemed like that confidence made sense from the metal perspective, but I couldn't catch it with the hip hop side. Like, why is this guy talking about gangbanging? That's stupid. Who wants to be a gangbanger? But now that I've gotten older, I've started to see that like hip hop is, like you said, it tells a story. And a lot of it comes through violence, and could be half true, could be half, made up. But in a lot of times they're just embellishing stories that they may have heard of or been around because of the way that they were raised. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Country singers do the same fucking thing. Like, if they've been raised on a farm and they, and drive on the back roads and they like the windows down and the Bud Lights, that's part of that culture, and that's what they were raised around. So those stories perpetuate there. And I think that, like you said, the good stuff rises to the top. If you take from that and you're working out savage to some George Strait, I have all the respect for you.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Right.
But I'm going to put on some Run the Jewels and throw some bangers, you know what I mean? And start throwing up some weight, I think one thing I've been trying to stick to during the pandemic is I tried to read more. Mm-hmm. I'm not fucking doing it. So I've been listening to audiobooks. I'm just to recommend one that's really good if you guys have any time over the holiday weekend, holiday weeks, or even, going forward on your newfound January journey. If any of you guys are going to try to do the New Year's resolution, Violence of Action. It's an incredible book about the War on Terror from 2001 to basically like 2011. And just that 10-year period. And a lot of it's like declassified, or some of the stories have just been, you couldn't say before or whatever, but we're so far along. Really awesome, again, to like kind of talk about something we brought up earlier about how hard certain groups of people have had it, on this timeline of human existence. And to hear people that when I was just getting in, out of high school, these guys that were my age and are now my age went through some of this stuff, and to hear the stories, it was really eye-opening, and I like to listen to shit like that when I run, because I like to hear about people doing things harder than I could ever, have it. Like actually running so hard they throw up because they could die if they don't, continue to move, where I'm running because I want to, and I'm crying about my little foot hurting, that kind of motivation stuff. But that, so I've been listening to that. I think I talked about the other audiobook about, being in the ice in the 1800s. Have you been reading any books? You got anything going on?
The one book that has been, I honestly feel like it's one of the best books I've ever read. It's called Shipping Creative Work by Seth Godin.
Oh, now I'm going to have to write this down.
It's probably one of the most amazing books I've ever read.
Say it again.
Shipping Creative Work by Seth Godin. And what I love about it so much is I feel like it's a support system in and of itself. And me as somebody, I guess you want to call it an entrepreneur, business owner, whatever, but just going through my own journey with my art and my work, and really, really providing some deeper contextual understanding of staying on that path and staying entrenched in a positive sense in what he calls the practice.
Interesting.
And, the practice of doing podcasting, the practice of your photography, the practice of your coaching clients, whatever that might be. And I'm about halfway through it, and it's a book that I will likely be gifting to a lot of my friends that are
That's awesome.
in their own journeys, because because it's been a huge thing for me, because understandably so, in our own journeys, whatever we're working towards, we're going to have plenty of instances where things don't go the way we want them to be,
right?
Or they don't go the way we want them to go, and we are faced with a multitude of decisions, but most notably, go to a place of feeling like, well, this isn't working out. Am I going to quit? Should I just quit? This is getting too overwhelming. I'm tired of this being a struggle. Or do you go back to the practice?
Right.
Do you go back to the work?
Go back to your training.
Yeah. So it's been big time for me. I've really enjoyed reading it.
Just to relate in short, when I get a little bump for whatever reason, for podcasting, like I take a break from it, I feel demoralized because I feel like I'm kind of getting out of touch. And we talked about this even earlier when we were offline for a minute about imposter syndrome. So, other podcasts put out stuff when I've just been kind of like lacking. Let's say I don't have one to put out. I'll find myself feeling better when I actually just sit down and start working on content and just doing the crossing the T's and dotting the I's and just doing the things that I know how to do to process the episode. And it makes a lot of other stuff melt away, kind of one foot in front of the other. Mm-hmm. And this year I've been doing better, but in years past, especially when my wife was in the middle of nursing school, it was tough for me to do a lot of multitasking. So 2-3 months would go by and I would just get kind of sad because I'm not doing my thing, but just cracking open the laptop and kind of fucking with it. It made me feel better.
Sure.
I did want to recommend one to you in that same vein. It's called What If It Does Work Out? Susie Moore and Sandy Rustin. It's basically the same thing, like tracking with your dream and actually bringing it to fruition. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But also like being aware of and talking about that insecurity you would have. And I'm guessing you have this being a small business owner of what if it doesn't work out, right? But that's the idea, is what if it does work out, and like kind of the potential mindsets that you might go through for that. So
mm-hmm.
Cool. So we got some content out there. That's what I was trying to think about that. I was like, I think that should be something we come up with, because we're consistently working out. We're consistently consuming content. I was like, man, we should recommend some stuff. Cause I'm all my friends will tell you, like, I'm very, annoying. Like, if somebody says that like my little brother, who's 18, he's like, I need a job. I fucking buried him in links that I found and shared him. I'm the same way with music. Like if I introduce somebody to some like genre or something, I'll just blast them for like 4 hours with links and shit like that, So I was like, man, we should bring some of that action to the podcast, cause I'm kind of an overshare, but, as I train for this 100-miler next year, I'm going to be chewing through books like they're going out of style. So I hope to bring more of that to you guys, just to give you guys kind of an insight as to some of what I consider to be positive content that I'm consuming. And I know that books are becoming more and more rare, that they come up in conversation between friends. So I thought it would be cool to see, Pat went off on a tangent when he talked about his book. And I kind of, this current one that I'm in is really interesting. But it's not as much to do with, kind of our content, but I would like to be able to bring that around, man. So if you have any ideas in the future, and then if you guys that are listening have anything that you want us to talk about, or you have some recommendations, I'd love to pick one up and give you guys a shout out on the cast and see what what you guys think of out there. What, any other advice that we can think of for like Christmas time? I know that people aren't like seeking this advice, but any parting shot you'd like to have while somebody goes into that? I mean, we talked about a lot of stuff with Christmas,
slow and steady, my friends,
and enjoy it.
There's no rush. There really shouldn't be. This is a powerful time of the year for a lot of people. It's got very, very profound positive pieces tied into it, which is part of the reason why we look forward to it each year, I would hope. So why do we need to rush through it with our eating, with the experience, especially with how this year has been? So my parting words would just be, take your time and enjoy it.
I love
regardless of whether you're not sure if you should be eating what you're eating. At least this is where I just tie into the gratitude piece of things. Slow down, be grateful, summon some amount of gratitude for the food that you're able to experience.
That you have it.
Yeah. And move on from there.
That's huge. And I hope everybody that's out there has a wonderful holiday. If it snows anywhere, get out there and enjoy some of that snow safely, of course. If you're looking to train for any races, please get out there and do some of that training. If you're looking to train for any bodybuilding competitions, get out there and lift, even if you're doing it in your garage. Just keep moving. Keep yourself within that balance that we keep talking about. Pat keeps talking about. Don't get me wrong. He's the teacher. I'm the Padawan. He is the Jedi. But I think that it's awesome because he even gets into my head quite a bit. I'm constantly thinking about my man here. So it's something I hope that you guys in this episode were able to take some stuff away from that could benefit you, and enjoy that fucking pie, man. If you want it, eat it. And tell everybody where they can find you if they want to start working on some of these things that they feel may be out of their control, Pat.
Sure. I'm on Instagram. That's at aware_lifeabq over on Instagram. And then if you'd like to visit my website, you're more than welcome to www.aware.training.
Yeah. And then of course he's always got some charming posts putting out on Facebook that I constantly share to my family and friends because I'm like, I couldn't fucking say this better. And it's always, I'm like, where's that share button? Because every single time that Pat's got something going out. So if you guys get a chance to follow him, I think that you guys will, you will ultimately benefit from it. If you want to follow People Pursuing Greatness podcast, it's at ppgpodcast.com. It's also PPG Podcast on Instagram. So that's at PPG Podcast. And it's also PPG Podcast on Facebook. I tried to keep it the same, if you guys noticed. It's also the same on Twitter. So and that is going to have more content coming. As you guys can tell, we're on the interwebs with video now. Hello. And we plan to kind of keep ramping that up. So yeah, look out for more content. I want you guys to enjoy your holidays. I want you guys to eat. And we'll see you guys on the other side. Make sure, when I see you guys next year, you guys are happier than you were this year. Onward and forward.